All right, let's
Hello?
roll. Can everyone see my screen? Give me a yes, give me a no. Just make sure you can see it before I dive right in. Yep,
Yes.
sweet. All right. So I'm going to be introducing you guys something called the MBP method. This is something that I think is one of the best strategies um, that you can use to grow your agency. I mean, all the other stuff is good, like ads and all that. Like obviously we spend a lot on ads and we talk a lot about how you should spend money on ads. Um, but this is just something that's like you can just skyrocket your agency because it's like a reaching the many through the few, so to speak. Um, so hang on, I'm just gonna making sure everybody can get in. So first of all, let's get into like the main part. Basically, imagine, I know that's you're supposed to be you are. Don't hate me on it. I just realized it before we started. But you're a Facebook marketer and you have a media buying agency and you want to work with a large supplement brand, right? And they spend close to 100K per month on ads, right? They're like a good client. They're a good target. People always ask me, like, well, how do I work? How do you find brands? How do you find companies that are spending a good amount on ads that already have something going, right? So, so many people ask that. And the question, well, the answer is uh, most people are going to do this. The agency, is going to, use cold email, cold call, Facebook ads, whatever, and try get to the company directly, right? So, this is what everybody does, and this is the biggest mistake, is you should never try to go after your dream client directly. It just doesn't work. Okay, so what should you do instead? Right? Well, first of all, how many people think this is the way to go? This is how you've been taught. If you want to work with a big client, you reach out, try to find something to work with them about. Should be most people. Yes, okay. Only one person. All good. Um, all right. So, um, this is what it looks like. This is what you get. Sorry, we're already working with another agency, right? If they're a big company and they're spending a decent amount on ads and they have something going, like they're already somewhat successful, they're going to say this. They're going to say, oh, sorry, we're already working with another agency because why wouldn't they, right? Once you get past a certain point, you have to hire stuff out. Um, so you have to understand the dynamic, right? So let's say big e-commerce brand we want to work with, they're already in a long-term contract with big agency that does everything. Okay, so even if you're better at Facebook ads and even if you're better at YouTube ads or whatever, uh, you're not going to get the contract because they're already working with another agency. Okay, so what do? You need to reverse engineer the deal, and this is what we call creating corporate angst. Okay, so you need to have some kind of corporate angst you're putting into your deal. So what you do is you've got big agency that currently manages $100,000 a month in Facebook ad spend for this brand. So what you need to do is you need to reach out to the agency, create an MBP, which is a mutually beneficial partnership, which we'll show you how to do. And then you need to then get them to sell that to the big brand. And this is a rinse and repeat strategy where if you do this with a few agencies, you can load up with dozens of brands. We've got some guys absolutely crushing it doing this. And there's ways to automate this type of thing as well. So we call this a mutually beneficial partnership, right? Also known as an MBP offer. So essentially, we're going to reverse engineer an irresistible offer that's designed to cause immediate negative or positive effect on the corporate ecosystem. That kind of sounds very wordy and clever, but basically, a negative or positive effect on the corporate ecosystem means someone's got to get fired for not responding to your email, right? And at the end of the day, a lot of people think that everybody just wants to do better as a brand, everybody wants to do better as a company. But when you get to a certain point, you're dealing with bigger companies, they really just care about the effect on the ecosystem. Like you got to understand that you're dealing with workers, people that, or an agency that might have a contract and they just, they're looking out for themselves, right? So you need to figure out how can you create that corporate benefit. So there are 6 ways, and we call them 6 gaps that we use to create an MBP. So this is 6 ways that you can reach out to a potential partner and then create a way for you to work together to work with other clients. So you can either increase the price and value of their offering for existing clients. So you're not even helping them get new clients. You're helping them just increase the value and price for the offering for current clients. Or you can increase the retention of their existing clients. So this still isn't adding new clients, it's just increasing the retention rate. You can increase the overall satisfaction of existing clients. You can increase the quality of the clients they attract. You can increase the volume of their clients, or you can open up more market share for new clients. Number 6 is actually one of my favorite ones. And I'm going to illustrate a few examples of how we've done this. This is even before we did AudienceLab. I mean, this is how we grew agencies before starting AudienceLab. So doing it with DAS is just freaking easy. But these are some really unique ways that we've done it, right? So look at an SEO agency. Okay, so they can only work with established brands who are willing to wait for results. So you want to think about, if I'm wanting to do an MBP with an SEO agency, I've got to think like, what are the problems they have? So they can't onboard a client until they've overcome at least 3 main obstacles: having a website built out, getting a regular stream of clients and traffic, and then having some market validation, right? So this makes a very, very small pool of clients that an SEO agency can really deal with anyway. So we use gap number 6. We identify a new market share. So basically what we did is we allowed the SEO agency to use our Facebook services to package it as their own. So they were able to get clients on and be like, all right, well, look, we're going to run Facebook ads while we build out your whole SEO strategy. And it opened up a whole new pool of clients and a whole new market share for that company, right? So they could build a website, get instant stream of traffic, and then justify charging a retainer to build up the links. This one's a really interesting one. This is one from a little while ago, but this one is like, it illustrates it perfectly, right? So people hate, they hate pharmaceutical companies advertising for doctors, right? There's actually like rules around it. And we had a compound pharmacy that wanted to work with doctors. And like, how would they do that? The first thing that you would do if you were a rep for a compound pharmacy and you were trying to work with doctors is you would cold email doctors and you'd be like, hey, our drug's really good. You got this, you can do this, blah, 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 blah. But what we do is we look at what are the biggest obstacles that this was dermatologists that their patients had and what were they afraid of? We found out it was scarring. Their patients were afraid of scarring. And that was stopping patients from committing to the surgery, right? So we can see there, what we can do is we can open up new market share or we can increase the value of existing clients. So what we did is we created an after scar skin treatment plan. So instead of approaching dermatologists and be like, hey, we've got this really good drug, blah, 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 like everybody else, we said, hey, look, we can help your clients. So help your patients because we'll provide an after scar skin treatment plan that you guys can offer to your patients to increase their confidence. Okay. So the first week of launching this campaign, we had 4 appointments and a closed sale. And what was really crazy about this is one of the times, I think we sent out just a few emails. And what happened was the compound pharmacy got on a Zoom and there was literally about 20 doctors on there that wanted to get in on this of dermatologists, right? So when you hit it right, it absolutely explodes. It doesn't take a lot. Here's another one, venture capital. So venture capital, they offer, they manage several agencies. It was like an agency venture capital firm. So our pitch to them was, hey, we can help you increase the value of the agencies and provide better results to clients by doing a performance-based arm to what you guys have now, right? It's a pretty straightforward one. I think I have one more. Yeah, this one's cool. Financial advisor for architects. I love these examples because it's just very different, right? This was a financial consultant and he helped companies find more profit in their business. That's what he did. And essentially, what we did was we figured out his ideal client that he wanted to work with was going to be architecture firms. That was who he worked with most of all. And what we did is we found out that he could actually help these architecture firms attract a new market share of clients, right? And get bigger offers. So we positioned his offer where he created like a forecast sheet or something. It was for architecture firms so they were able to bid on projects faster and have lower costs than most of these like bigger firms while still making a decent margin. And that was like the service that this guy offered. And it worked really, really well. So how do you create an MBP? First things first, you identify the whale target, right? You think about who is the biggest client in your niche that you can think of. They need to have an expensive enough problem, and you need to be realistically be able to help them, right? So you think about who is the whale client. And yeah, so some people like have been told to stay in one niche. So what's cool about this is you can actually switch your targeting to focus just on finding agencies or just on MBP partners, and you can run better ads doing it that way. Or there's a LinkedIn strategy I can show you guys of how you can do that as well. So what you want to do is once you've found the ideal whale, right, then you want to list out every entry point of how you can help. And how you do that is you look at like who are their connected partners. So let's say for an example, this is a big e-commerce company that I would like to work with, like this type of avatar, right? They have a creative agency that does their ads, like the creatives in the UGC. Then they have a media agency. They probably have an email marketing team. They probably have a separate SEO division. There's probably a list. There's probably like 10 different companies that are relying on the success of like the 10 different companies that are benefiting from the success of that whale. So if you can just find one of them and solve that problem and then get built into their offer, they'll push it out to all their clients. Because the beauty of this strategy is, let's say, for an example, we had a creative agency that specialized in UGC, so user-generated content. That's all they did, right? And we were able to show these guys, hey, you guys just do creatives, but we could give you a way where you could do creative and then also provide an audience to your clients and charge an extra bit, and you can make this much extra, right? They're like, oh, holy shit, this is mad. We have like 50 clients in the same boat. Can we do this? And it works. This is what happens. Like it scales super quick. So I would say probably 60% of the time that you guys hear where we're like, hey, this guy did this and this guy reached out here and this guy was able to generate 100,000. I would say majority of the time it's actually through MBP strategies where they don't go for the client directly. They go for the partner and they solve a problem for the partner using one of the 6 gaps. So once you do that, then you find the gap, right? So you think about the 6 gaps. So I want to work with a media agency. How do I increase the value of their existing offer for existing clients by using the data? So it's like, because everybody thinks everybody just wants more clients. That's not always the case. Yeah, everybody wants more clients, but if you can show somebody how they can increase the value of their offerings to existing clients, that's actually even better. It's less work for them. So I've got a bit of a worksheet. And let's just do a quick temp check. Who understands this thus far, understands the strategy? Drop me a yes, drop me a no. Cool. Effing brilliant. Awesome. Cool. So how do we create mutually beneficial partnerships? Right?
Hey, Adam, can we get a copy of the slides?
Yeah, no, of course. I'll post this. I send out an email of the recordings every week, but I put it in school as well. I'll show you where to find that at the end, because then I'll stop recording.
Thank you.
Okay, so how do you do it? So basically, you need to so think about this. So people are in a croc brain state, right? So what that means, if you don't know what the croc brain is, basically it means that they're not even taking in information. You have to engage them in some way. So you have to have some kind of offer that solves the biggest problem that agency is having for their client. So what I mean by that is, let's say for an example, I was to reach out to that UGC agency and I was like, hey, I want to work together. Maybe we can like help you get more clients. Like they don't care about that. It's like, hey, I know you guys, the biggest thing that you guys have is that the creative that you make for clients, you have no way of being able to track, like, is it the creative working or is it the audience? So what I'm going to do is you can use my audiences and package it in or something like that. Like that's how you want to think. You want to be like, how can you actually find the biggest problem that partner's having and then solve it using these gaps? So Move for the SEO agency, compound pharmacy. Oh, this is that one here, right? So, um, here. So the first couple of emails we sent out, you can see here, it was with a telehealth platform, and they wanted to sign a license to dispense their products for the anti-scarring and anti-aging for the compound pharmacy. So that was like a massive deal. And that was just with a couple of emails, right? Like we didn't have to set up some kind of massive cold email system setting up 100,000 emails a day. That was like 100 emails. Venture capital, you guys saw that one. You can see that one. This is an example of the emails that we'll send and so forth. So this is the worksheet of how I recommend doing MBPs. So the first things first is we identify the whale client. So who is the biggest client in your niche that you can think of? And that's how and then you figure out your whale client. Then what you do is you work back and you figure out who is the partner and point of entry of this whale. So who are the connected partners? Because this is where a lot of people mess up, is like, who are the connected partners and who benefits from this client doing well? Like maybe there's lawyers, consultants, growth advisors. Let's say it's a startup, so instead of going to that startup directly, you're like, all right, well, how can I actually help the VCs have say for an example, you want to work with big SaaS companies, and SaaS companies that have budget for ads and things like that. You go to the VCs and you position it where it's like, hey, I can help you have a repeatable system that you can bring in to the SaaS companies when you invest into them. So you can actually invest less and just say, well, I'm going to pay for the marketing, right? So you think about what problems do these partners solve? So I usually just pick you pick one that you resonate with most, and then you're like, what can we solve? So let's say for an example, they create booths at conventions, they do high quality video productions, websites, branding. Like what problems do they solve for the whale? Okay. Then you look at what gap can we use to fill in this. So let's say for an example, we're running a campaign and we want to deal with we want to work with pharmaceutical companies, right? So we speak to pharmaceutical companies and we find out that there's an agency that helps pharmaceutical companies. And they're like, oh yeah, well, we create booths at the conventions. We do like a really nice video for the pharmaceutical companies. We do like branding, all this stuff. And then we find out, well, we can actually help them have more performance-driven strategy for the pharmaceutical companies, right? And then you create your kind of MBP offer. And this is a thing I put together in terms of how you would kind of map this out as an avatar, right? I created a thing of how to do booleans and you do that in LinkedIn. But honestly, you can just find that and push it into AudienceLab. Get referral sites, NAICS, SIC, revenue, and you do that and you can do MBP. So that's the MBP strategy pretty much in a nutshell. Is the first thing you want to do is you want to stop going after the client directly. That's a big no-no, right? Because the client is always going to be like, hey, I'm already working with another agency. Okay, like I'm already dealing with this guy, already dealing with that guy, already have a contract there. And even if you're better, they don't really care because there's not enough corporate angst for them to switch. So what you need to do is you need to figure out who are the partners that are helping that client. So who are the connected partners, which is most likely the agencies. And then to figure out how you can solve a big problem for them. So let's do a temp check. Give me 1 out of 5. 1, you have no idea what this is. 5, you're like, I could execute this tomorrow. 5, cool. Okay, 2, go in. 5, 5, 10. Sweet, 2. All right. All right, well, let's go through some examples. So let's say if I can find out who their partners are, 5, they're a system to easily find partners. So obviously it's a little bit hard to do this for every single thing, right? It's a bit hard to be like, okay, so what every single client I have to find out who the agency is and who this is and things like that. So really what you can do is you can kind of do like a bit of a broader strategy and just focus on the agency of the agency, so to speak. So let's say for an example, I want to go after, let's think about a pharmaceutical one, and I want to go after agencies that help pharmaceutical companies, right? Like that's like the main thing. So I'm going to start off. Usually, what I do is if I don't have like an ideal target in mind, you can start off by doing like a pretty broad search. And I usually just focus on a broad advertising category. I actually have a LinkedIn strategy that I'll show you guys in terms of how we do it. I call this micro prospecting because what it does is essentially, if if you're still stuck in that thing where it's like, hey, how do I find my niche? How do I find my vertical? Like, who should I go after? Things like that. You can do this as a more broader way and it will get good results. So what you want to do is, you want to start off with having a really concise, optimized LinkedIn bio. So this is like a LinkedIn bio framework we can put together, right? So I call this micro prospecting. And essentially what you're going to do is you're going to get a free trial of Sales Navigator and chuck in a Boolean. Now, you can just build this audience and AudienceLab, but it depends on like what kind of Boolean you want. Some stuff you can only do on LinkedIn because they have certain Booleans you can only do in there, but you can do a Boolean inside of AudienceLab as well. A Boolean string is basically just saying, I want this or that. So you could actually just chuck all these into AudienceLab. So like agency, marketing, e-commerce, e-com. But it doesn't, the thing about this strategy is you don't need a crazy specific audience. You could just find all the agencies in the US and go that way. I do this on LinkedIn. Reason being is because if you do it with cold email, you need that whole cold email setup. This is about just getting up as easy as possible. I usually use Wildexy to do this. That's how I first started doing it. There's other ones out there. There's like Expanding and things like that. Wildexy is cool though because you can just set up like a very broad Boolean. You could even load in AudienceLab data if you want, and just go that way. Doesn't really matter what you use. The strategy is the same. Okay, so then this is the magic here: is you want to be able to have the authority asset set up. So, with this, essentially, you want to be able to have a bio that has this exact framework, right? So you've got, I do help solve specific challenge using knowledge gap. How I did it, and then you have authority to back up your claim of how you know what you know. Then you have how you can do it too. So you want to destroy ambiguity and create clarity around your process using inverse benefits, why you should do it too, and then how to apply. So here's an example about me, blah, 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 how I did it, how you can do it too. And then you have just like a breakdown, why you should do it, how to apply. Another one, what I do, how I do it, how you can do it too, and so forth. Another one, how I do it, about me, how it works for others, and so forth. Another one again. Yeah. Another one again. Now, what I actually did with this, and this is something that's like heavy embedded because I am not a prompt expert, but I've actually like all this stuff that I teach you, like you guys hear me say knowledge gap quite a bit, success framework, like all this stuff. I actually built a prompt pretty much just for it. Let me pull it over. And I'll do another workshop showing you how this looks. But let's say for an example, write me a LinkedIn headline for a using the success framework. Success stands for simple, unexpected, credible, concrete, emotional stories. It's based on a book called Made to Stick. Write me a LinkedIn headline using the success framework for a financial consultant helping activity companies invest their cash. If you just type that in, and I'll give you like the prompts and everything, it knows all the stuff. So if I go here, you can get your headline created like super quick, and then you can say like, hey, write a LinkedIn bio using this framework, and it'll pop it out. We're still working on this at the moment. I'll share it at the end. Basically, I've just been training this thing for the past week and everything that I teach you guys. Um, it's pretty cool. I'll go in and show you some stuff at the end. But basically, back to this. On the market prospecting guide, you want to have an optimized bio, and you want to optimize this focused on um, how you can help the partner, right? So no one's confused. Essentially, if I'm talking about how I'm going to work with, like, I want to work with pharmaceutical companies, I figure out how I can help pharmaceutical agencies. So I want to write my bio focused on how I help pharmaceutical agencies, right? And how I help. That's the target that I'm going for. And then I'm going to do like a broader Boolean or a broader audience of agencies and trying to get as many pharmaceutical agencies as possible. So once you have this set up, the bio set up, then what you want to do is you'll set up a very, very simple thing inside of Galaxy. And basically, this is, if you're in DAS, you should be able to have access to this. And I'm going to send an email to everybody in DAS to make sure you have access to like a bunch of these resources here. But the first message really is literally just on LinkedIn. It's just saying, hey, it's great to finally meet you. It's great to finally meet you. That's it. That's all it says, right? It just says that in the first opening line. Then what's going to happen is they're going to immediately look at your, bio, be like, who the heck is this guy? And if this resonates with them, then you're going to send the follow-up, and it's just going to say, hey, would it be okay if I send an email real quick explaining more about what I do? Right? And what's going to happen is, let me find an example of, I'll find it inside of here. But basically, what's going to happen is you're going to wake up every day and people are going to just send their email because they're like, it's like, oh, yeah, sure. Like, so essentially what you're doing is you're connecting them on LinkedIn. They're reading your bio and qualifying themselves. You're sending a message the day after, and you're just saying, hey, would it be possible if I just explain what I do over a quick email? Right? I think there's a bunch of ways we can work together. And then they qualify themselves because they just put their email in. I usually find this has a pretty high percentage of people that give their email. So then you just wake up every day and then you just like, all right, well, these are the pitch emails I need to do. And then you have what's called the MBP pitch email, right? So this is something that this is all inside of DAS. So I don't want to like hurt my DAS page. I'm like, yeah, everyone can just have it. But if you're in DAS, I'm going to send we're going through and just checking all the DAS accounts, and I'll make sure you have access to this. But potentially this is the pitch email, right? So all it is just a subject line, and it says name, can we chat? And it's just like, thanks for allowing the intro on LinkedIn. Reason for reaching out is I would like to discuss a performance-driven partnership. This one's important, performance-driven partnership with a few of the clients you currently have under, and then you have company, where I can assist with, and then you can have in this part here. Now, what I've done is I've actually set up this here, where anytime we have case studies that I can verify, I chuck in what's called cold one-liners, and you can use these to put them into your email to make them stick out more. So for an example, and you want to be careful with these. That's why I'm not going to release them like today, because I put these together now, but you want to make sure you have it correct. But basically, you say, say for an example, reason for reaching out is I would like to discuss, and then you have bit in here for an example, and then you can put in a very, it's success driven, so simple, unexpected, credible, concrete, emotional story case study of like, recently I did, boom, right? I'd love to discuss setting this up for company and the products you have running. This thing absolutely crushes. What's going to happen is you send that and they're like, yeah, cool, let's book in, let's do it, blah, blah, blah. And that's how you can just start getting appointments like right away. So here's an example of the message on LinkedIn, of the message on LinkedIn. It's just, hey, name, would it be okay if I send an email real quick? Not on here often, but actually wanted to set up a time to meet you properly, possibly hear what more you're doing. Couldn't find a way to get through on the site. This one's a little bit cheeky. I did this one for like, I've been using this for years, but this one is basically like, some people don't want to use that because they're like, oh, it's a bit cheeky, but you can chuck that in and it works really well. Then you have a message sent the day later and it says sorry, I should have called that one earlier. Shows you're a human. Again, cheeky, but it works. And then one after is just, hey, just following up, looking forward to chatting with you. I just have those three messages. I don't have anything complex whatsoever. Just looks like that. And then they'll just reply, yeah, sure, shoot me an email here. And then you just say send. So the trick to LinkedIn is you want to get people off LinkedIn as soon as possible. So as soon as you make contact with someone on LinkedIn, you want to immediately figure out how to get them off LinkedIn. Because when they're on LinkedIn, they're just assuming they're just in that mode of like everybody's just spamming them and so forth. If you can get them off LinkedIn and start pitching them on email, that's how you can actually get this to work. And because this is an MBP, the pitch is so simple, right? So sure, shoot me an email, blah, blah, blah. And I go, cool. The email is going to say, Todd, great to chat. Thanks for allowing the intro on LinkedIn. As I mentioned, I would like to discuss potentially partnering in some of the projects you have under, and then I put in the brand on a performance basis. And then I just put in this part I just riffed, but you can actually just put in the openers that I put in there. And from there, you'll have a really good response in terms of people that want to meet. Like before I even knew how to run ads, I did this and it just absolutely crushed. So yeah, it's super easy to do, super easy to set up. What I like about this is so many people when you're starting out, so many get bogged down in what vertical do I start with, what niche do I start with. Literally just get an audience of agencies. You can be an AudienceLab, you can pull like a list of businesses, or just go to LinkedIn and just put in the agencies category and then just have an automated LinkedIn campaign. And then all you want to do is optimize the bio to focus a little bit more specific on how you're going to help these types of agencies. So if it's really niche and say, for example, like pharmaceutical agencies, you don't have to be like, I help pharmaceutical agencies. Like you could be like, I help pharmaceutical companies and their specific challenge using the knowledge gap. So I want to be clear on that distinction there is it's going to be weird if you have a headline that's like, I help pharmaceutical agencies because it sounds like you help them get clients. Instead, it's like, I help pharmaceutical companies do this, but you're going to be focusing on getting the pharmaceutical agency to see that because they're like, oh, that's how they help pharmaceutical companies. I could use this. Does that part make sense? Because I know for some people that part's a little bit confusing. What if we focus on multiple verticals? Doesn't matter. It honestly doesn't matter what vertical you focus on. If you like, the idea is, let's say for an example, you focus on multiple verticals, but you solve likely the same problem in each vertical, right? Maybe it's the data loss problem, maybe it's the pixel, maybe it's audiences, like whatever. The fact is, you solve this problem. Now, you don't have to you could just say, I help solve this problem using this gap. So I help solve, companies that are unable to do X, Y, Z using this gap, and then they can kind of qualify themselves through it. So you don't have to put in specific verticals. You can just say, I help companies that deal with this in a range of verticals like this, and this. Here's how I do it. The idea is the problem is what sticks out the most. So somebody is going to see that, go into your profile, be like, oh yeah, oh, this is actually pretty interesting. And then they're going to qualify themselves. How would you word that for multiple companies? Just exactly like that. So I would just be like, I'll show you. So I do help. So basically it would be like, I help solve the issue of finding hard to reach doctors, lawyers, or anyone where advertising is impossible. Using B to B to C document. This is like just a very example. Something like that. All right. Like I help solve, and you want to focus on the problem being very specific. And then you can even just throw in something like there. So it's like people like this, and this. The point is, it's more about the problem that you're solving than it is about just calling out the prospect directly, because they'll know. Makes sense. What if we focus on high growth, high income market and do one thing so good that I become an integral part of their business? I mean, that's the idea. The idea is you become an integral part of their business. Because I can tell you guys now, working with the client and then making them money, they will stay on, but they'll still probably leave because they'll use the classic, oh, we want to keep this in-house. I've heard of a story of, I think it was Hernan was saying like was Hernan or someone else, someone who was crushing it for their client. No, it was Craig. Craig, a media buyer that I'm pretty close with. He, was crushing it for a client, got them from like $80 cost per appointment. Sorry, no, from $100 or $300 cost per appointment down to $80, getting them better conversion rates. And the business still said, hey, look, we have to stop because we want to take this in-house, right? Whereas if you help an agency make their client more money and then make them more money, they'll just never leave. Like if you help that MBP make more money, like they won't leave you. That's as simple as that, right? So let's say for an example, a project that we're doing in home services, we want to focus on agencies that are dealing with home service companies. That's like a strategy we're using. And there's not really many agencies deal with home service companies. There's PPL companies, like pay per lead companies, and there's networks that deal with those companies. So if I want to work with home service companies, instead of reaching out to, actually, this is a great example, instead of reaching out to a bunch of roofers and saying, hey, I can help you generate more leads, I focus on the partners of that. And I look at the networks, the pay-per-call networks. And I'm like, hey, I can produce leads to be able to help XYZ companies. And that's how I do it. We do a minimum of 5 agency clients that are one-offs. That's interesting. Sweet. All right. Quick little recap. So first things first. I mean, the LinkedIn stuff, that's all good, but really it just comes down to this, right? First, if I could give you like Adam's core notes in terms of understanding it. The first thing is think of your dream client and never go after them directly. I mean, you can if you're really confident, but I would say don't do it because 9 out of 10 times, if they're your dream client, it means they have money. It means they're running ads, they have SEO, they got traffic, and it means they have an agency. They're working with someone already. Maybe it's all in-house, but it's probably set out to different sub-agencies. I just signed an agency client using this model. Great call. No worries. Good for you, man. Awesome. So never go out to them directly. Instead, look at the biggest problem that the agency would have in trying to help that client and look at how you can help that agency. Then what you want to do is you want to gear your marketing around that. Now, the LinkedIn strategy I gave you is just super, super easy, but you could literally just you could just do a bit of research and just find a list of agencies that hit the criteria and send an email and just say, hey, I'd love to do a performance-driven partnership where I can help some of the clients you have, and then put in what you're going to do for them. It's always going to be one of these 6. Don't just think about opening new clients for them. Think about, okay, cool. You can increase the retention of their existing clients. You can increase the overall satisfaction of their clients. The more unique, the better, because it's going to stand out. Once you have this set up, then you can go through and start building your marketing materials, right? What I might do is I've actually started getting the inside inside this prompt. I've started teaching it what we call PDocs. If you guys didn't know how we used to run PDocs, or we still run PDocs, but we used to teach it a lot more. And we have a thing called the 7A framework. So I could just say, turn this into a Facebook post using the 7A framework. I'll have to put in more details than that. But once you have the idea of your angle right, you can start just playing around with different, you can start playing around with different frameworks. But really, in its most simple form, the idea is like getting the strategy right. So it's like, so instead of going after the direct client, going after the client directly, think about who's going to benefit from that client success. It's going to be an agency. It's going to be maybe an investor. It's going to be, it's going to be Oh man, there's so many different ways. Like once you do this, it's pretty intense. All right, sweet. So, let's do a quick temp check and then I'll pause this recording and then we'll go over some questions. So give me a 1 out of 5 in terms of how you understand this. 1, not good. 5, you're ready. You can go out and crush it with this. 4, okay, cool. All right, how are we doing with time? All right, sweet. So I'm gonna stop recording here and let's answer some questions.